Now on KGW News, there's been a lot of talk about so-called vaccine passports and politicians coming out against the idea. But we verify there's actually no plan to require them. Plus, another setback. Portland area restaurants and their workers have to adjust again to a cut in capacity.
It's a real challenge. I feel for everybody who's in it.
But first, inmates say a Multnomah County jail isn't keeping them safe from COVID.
I was just shocked by their response. It's so lacking.
Now they're taking the case to court. Good evening, everyone. I'm Laurel Porter. Those inmates are now suing Multnomah County. They say the conditions inside the Inverness jail in Northeast Portland led to a COVID outbreak. Here's Mike Benner.
I have brushes with the law. I'm no angel.
Ben Baker says he spent several hours inside the Multnomah County Inverness jail in late March. This was about the same time a COVID outbreak that sickened nearly 200 inmates, staff, and family members was coming to an end. Baker recalls sitting in a holding cell with at least a dozen other inmates, some with masks, some without.
I would put it on staff to be a little more prudent, and I didn't feel, I was very stressed. I'm literally have a guy leaning on me with no mask, yelling and screaming about how he has COVID.
Based on what he experienced, Baker is not at all surprised to learn about a lawsuit filed against Multnomah County, including Sheriff Mike Reese and jail staff. The lawsuit, filed on behalf of more than a dozen inmates who tested positive for COVID, claims that Inverness staff failed to protect the adults in custody. The lawsuit alleges there was inadequate social distancing, soap and sanitizer, and face coverings, among other things.
What we see here is just such a fundamental lack of caring about a community of people, and such dehumanization of a community of people. And we've got to be bigger than this.
Tara Harival is one of the lawyers representing the inmates. She hopes the lawsuit leads to regular testing, access to disinfecting solutions, and perhaps most importantly, a safety plan to prevent additional COVID outbreaks.
We are as good as we treat the most marginalized in our communities. And so we must lift us all up and protect us all for the betterment of everyone.
A spokesperson for the sheriff's office says they do not comment on pending litigation, but adds, since the onset of the pandemic, they've been working with health officials to keep inmates safe, and they're constantly adapting their response. That includes a list of dozens of safety policies.
There has been, to my knowledge, no comprehensive enforcement or compliance efforts to attach to the policies.
Ben Baker would agree. The follow-through inside Inverness jail walls, he says, is lacking. He's hoping the county improves its COVID response inside Inverness.
We all need to work together, and I think the law enforcement should be at the forefront of that as well.
In Portland, Mike Benner for KGW News.
As for the latest in the pandemic, today Oregon reported 678 new COVID cases and 5 new deaths. Here's a look at the daily case numbers. Today's tally is the highest single-day total since early February. You can also see the daily averages are starting to tick back up. Health officials have been warning of a potential new surge of the virus. And those rising case numbers have 6 Oregon counties returning to the high-risk level tomorrow, and that includes Multnomah and Clackamas counties. This means restaurants, bars, and gyms have to cut indoor capacity again in half from 50 to 25%. There's plenty of concern over the impact this may have on businesses. Tonight, the Clackamas County Board met to take testimony and send a letter to Governor Brown. In it, they express frustration over the risk level change and want the governor to reconsider.
Daily, we see our businesses riding a roller coaster of highs and lows, and we need to create a baseline of safety, stability, and security for them.
This also leads to employees no longer wanting to go through the yo-yo effects or take their health at risk, and they're choosing to no longer go back to work. Mentally, emotionally, and financially, the owners and employees will suffer.
Business owners also said they feel they weren't given enough notice that the risk level change was going to happen. Multnomah County businesses are also worried about the capacity reductions. Jim Rice, for instance, owns the Fields Bar and Grill in the Pearl. He says during the worst of the pandemic, he went from 21 employees down to just 3. Now he has 16 working, but he's worried about them and everyone in the bar and restaurant business.
I am more concerned about the impact that's happening on the on the bartender, the servers, the cooks, the people that live paycheck to paycheck all across our industry.
It is unclear how long the high risk level will hold. Health officials are watching to see if the rise in cases is just temporary. Now a look at the latest COVID vaccine numbers around our area. Oregon is quickly approaching 850,000 people fully vaccinated. That's close to 20% of the population. An additional 500,000 people have received one dose. In Washington, more than 1.6 million people are fully vaccinated. The state is also moving toward 950,000 people with their first dose. Of the hundreds of thousands of fully vaccinated Oregonians, 168 have become breakthrough cases. That's when someone tests positive for the virus, even though they're fully vaccinated. 3 people have died. Health officials say it's a reminder that no vaccine is 100% effective. Throughout the pandemic, misinformation has also spread like a virus. The latest target appears to be the vaccine passport concept. Tonight, Kristen Severance is looking at what is actually true and what's required right now in the U.S.
Claim number 3.
First, we spent months debunking misinformation about COVID.
We can verify that everything in this post is just not true.
Then masks.
We can verify the claims that masks are causing carbon dioxide poisoning or toxicity are false.
Now it's vaccine passports. Vaccine passports are a digital or paper record showing you've had the COVID vaccine, used when traveling. China has one that uses a QR code. A digital version is being used in the EU. Vaccine passports are not being used in the U.S., but international travelers do currently use something called a yellow card to show that they've been immunized against diseases like yellow fever. While President Biden has assembled a task force to look into digital vaccine certificates, he said these would be left to the private sector and the system would not be maintained by the government. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said last week there will be, quote, no federal mandate requiring everyone to obtain a single vaccination credential. Dr. Anthony Fauci said the same thing this week. But misinformation about a federally mandated vaccine passport system persists.
I think the main kind of misinformation we're seeing is a lack of good information.
Daniel Acosta Ramos is an investigative researcher with First Draft, an organization that analyzes and tries to stop misinformation. He said there are several narratives out there about vaccine passports. One, a real lack of context about what they are.
There is something lacking, and it's the fact that vaccine passports has been around for quite some time. I have mine here. It's just a yellow card in which you can have all the vaccinations you can have.
He said the second narrative has to deal with the, quote, end of times.
It's basically a direct connection between this vaccine passport and apocalyptical/religious narrative.
He said the vaccine passport as a start to the end of the world is being spread by QAnon and their supporters, like Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia.
Is this something like Biden's mark of the beast? Because that is really disturbing and not good.
So in both cases, we're seeing that as the misinformation starts in closed spaces and then goes to more public spaces.
And the third narrative is that passports will be federally mandated. Mike Pompeo tweeted, requiring Americans to show a vaccine passport is outrageous and un-American. Republican Senator Rand Paul wrote an op-ed for The Hill with the title, We Must Resist the Latest COVID-Era Power Grab, the Vaccine Passport. And Republican governors like Greg Abbott of Texas and Ron DeSantis of Florida are banning vaccine passports in their states.
It validates in some way the rhetoric or even some of the misinformation that's out there already.
Jason Malika teaches social and digital media analytics at American University. He said when politicians ban something that doesn't exist, like a federally mandated passport, it really fuels the misinformation wildfire.
That basically says we're taking the information that someone said that wasn't really necessarily filled with truth and basically said, yep, that's true. And that's where people get confused, but that's also where the line starts to be divided between Republicans, Democrats, or vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, or even governors that feel that it would be good to have these passports if they were ever put into effect or not.
Bottom line, while some private businesses may end up requiring proof of vaccination, there is no federally mandated COVID vaccination passport system in the works.
And while the federal government isn't mandating a vaccine passport system, as Kristen mentioned, private businesses or even event centers may still ask you to prove you've received the COVID vaccine.